Good evening, hello and welcome. And can the dragon be trusted? Can the confidence-building measure ease the 7-month-long standoff at the LAC as our Jawans face challenging winters? While India constructively engages in diplomatic and military-level talks, we have upped the ante against China, whether it's about deeply engaging with the US or about countering the Chinese through the Quad cooperation. Joining us on the broadcast are our guests, Mr. Neelam Deo, he's the director of the Gateway House, Ashok Sajjanar, he's a former diplomat. Retired Major General S.B. Asthana also joins us. Mr. Sreeram Chaulia, who is a foreign affairs expert, is also with us on the broadcast. See, trust building, as we're talking, is easier said than done. There are about 5 agreements that have governed the WMCC, the dialogue that has happened at the bureaucratic level. 5 round of talks that have happened, but joint inspection, routine meetings, that seems very challenging, because even if you have an agreement in place, even if there is a structure through which you can have disengagement or pulling back to a certain extent, how are you going to have those inspections, or how are you going to even build a mechanism to make sure that both sides are honoring the word that they have given on the table, sir?
Yeah, Anusha, I think the American factor is going to be central here. Technological intelligence, TechInt. We will need more support. We have recently signed the BECA agreement with the US, which gives us access to their geospatial intelligence and mapping and satellite imagery, and we are looking to purchase drones and other such things from including the US, other parties as well.
Yeah.
So I think this will be an important way for us to verify. I'm reminded of Ronald Reagan's famous phrase in the 1980s when the US used to not negotiate with the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And he used to often cite a Russian proverb, trust but verify. But in this case, given that the Chinese, and remember, Reagan was dealing with a Gorbachev who was anyway liberal and was a moderate. But we are dealing with Xi Jinping, who is a hardliner and a very, very wily fox. So they are a sly customer. So what we have to do is don't trust and keep on verifying. Using technical imagery will be critical, because that is the way for us to monitor the movement of their troops.
Yeah.
I think that was where we were found a little bit wanting earlier this year. So I think we have to cover that gap. So it's not only the border infrastructure, the roads and the passageways. Obviously, Narendra Modi government is spending far much more and at a much faster rate than any previous government in the history of India. So I think we will eventually match them in that. But in the meantime, use the equipment that we have and use the partnerships, the diplomatic partnerships are going to be very important. And we have to apply counter pressure at different points, Anusha. It's not only the movements back and forth and the trust and the mistrust at LAC. There is the Quad mechanism you mentioned. There is the Indo-Pacific.
Absolutely. And I agree with you that though this is a bilateral issue, as India has insisted upon, though this is a bilateral issue that India has insisted upon, the global... And I want to talk about the winter break theory, and taking that point to Mr. Sreeram Chaulia. Mr. Chaulia, is it just a winter break that the Chinese wants? As Mr. Ashok Sajjanar was pointing out, that harsh winter is not something that the Chinese soldiers are really equipped to deal with. They want a winter break. That is why they are engaging right now. They might just once again backstab you once the weather is much better, much under control, because they have the better infrastructure on their side.
Yeah, Anusha, I think the timing of the disengagement and de-escalation does suggest it is directly related to the adverse climatic conditions up there in the icy heights. And they know that the Indian army can actually outlast them on those heights. So I think it's also a bit of a face saver for them, because they will say that, it was like a draw or something like that, rather than the Indians actually winning. And for, I think, very politicized PLA, the PLA is not a professional army like Indian army.
True.
They're directly under the control of the Communist Party. So for them, and they have at every level controlled by civilian political cadres across the PLA. So for them, they are looking at this kind of a step back as a way of saving face. And, in Chinese civilization, that's a very common theme. And I think as far as, them returning comes, for next summer, we are clearly going to anticipate it. I mean, it's not like, they're going to suddenly come in and we won't know. So that's where, that's why I said heightened vigilance and alertness. And we can also spring another strategic surprise on them. Let's not underestimate Indian army and Narendra Modi's will to, do tit for tat. That's what we did this time. That's why we are in a strong bargaining position with them. So while there is, of course, the disadvantage in terms of the infrastructure, and we are trying to catch up with them, we can also, through human valor and our own, ability to read the topography there. Our military has shown it once, and we can do it again. And if necessary, there will be limited
Major
clashes
General
also,
SBS
Anusha. You're
Thana,
right, the diplomacy
Major
is
General
our
SBS
first
Thana, I'll
preference.
take those
But
points.
if the Chinese
Yeah.
do another kind of a cloak and dagger act, we know what they're up to. We are alert to it,
Yeah.
and we are not sleeping at the wheels. So I think this government is going to defend the security and the territorial integrity without any compromise.